Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling in from. As always, it is a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm joined by a few friendly faces who you may or may not have met before. As always, Ariel with me today.
Hello, everyone.
But I've also got a few special guests. Some of my some folks who I've been working with over the last few months who have been absolutely amazing. Akshaya and Mohit from Pathlock. They're here today to walk us through the integration of Axiomatics and Pathlock, integrating with SAP. Akshaya, Mohit, feel free to say hello.
Hey, hi everyone, Akshay here. I'm the senior architect for the DAC product, and we have been working with Axiomatics for the past 1 year for this integration. Mohit, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm working as the product manager for the DAX solution, and it's a privilege to work with Axiomatics for this partnership and provide the support in the SAP environment.
Excellent. Well, I am very happy that I get to work with you guys. Very happy that you guys are here. Mostly because the integration that we're talking about today is a really exciting one. If you haven't figured it out yet, based on looking at the screen, of course, we're not talking about SAP. We are talking about SAP. While, yes, I am Canadian and I do love my maple syrup or maple sap, I'd rather talk about SAP today. And the reason why I find that this one's so exciting, so interesting, is it's everywhere. SAP is, as the statistic shows, in over 90% of the world's largest companies. They're using either some small components or using the entire SAP stack. It is an amazing tool. It typically does exactly what it is being touted as, but it's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But today we're going to basically go through and talk about how, with the combination of Axiomatics and Pathlock, how we can help enhance your SAP investment in order to get more value out of what you've already put in. For any of you who know me, I really like analogies and I like to start simple. So I'm going to bring it back to the fact that an SAP application, and there's a lot of them out there, they're a lot like houses. That's plain and simple. And in order to get into SAP or into any one of those applications, you've got to get through the front door. And that's basically like your key to the front door or your basic authentication in order to log in. The next thing, though, is once you're into that SAP house or SAP application, the next thing that you need to do is get authorized to the different elements within the house. You know, there's different rooms in the house. You've got the living room, the kitchen, the basement, whatever it might be. And you want to make sure that only the right people have access to the right elements within the house. And that's the authorization component. When it comes to SAP, the way that they work is they're basically assigning roles to each of those individuals. So as an example, if you take a look at myself and my wife, we're basically like the administrators to the house. So we have full access to everything within the house. But then if you look at my son, you know, he's a bit of a troublemaker. He doesn't have full authorized access to the kitchen. But then you see a scenario where my daughter has not full access, but not fully denied access to the kitchen. If you were to think about it in a logical sense, you know, you've got a role for the kitchen, but within the kitchen, there's a bunch of things that we might want to work with. You know, you've got the sink, of course. You've got the fridge. And my kids might have access to that, but I don't want the kids in the fridge at midnight, as an example. No midnight snacks. But the other thing is there's the stove. And for the stove, I don't want my kids to be in there without without supervision. I want to make sure that they've gone through proper training, if you will, to make sure that they should have the right level of access. So what you see here is that little exclamation point. And if this was a real world scenario, the more things that I want to control within the house or within the application, I have to start building out more and more roles. So as an example, I wouldn't just have the lobby, the kitchen, the living room, and so on. Under kitchen, I'd have kitchen sink, and then kitchen fridge, kitchen stove. And all of those would be different roles that would end up having to be set up in order to define who has the right level of access to those items within the kitchen. And of course, it's not just the kitchen that we need to worry about. I don't want my kids to be in the garage trying to turn on the car. I don't want the kids in the garage playing with all the sharp things. So all of those things that I need to control need roles. And what it starts to look like is you almost end up with these little authorization elements all over the house trying to dictate who has access to what within that house. That becomes a bit of a nightmare. And what that does is it leads to a series of different challenges. The first one is one that you've probably already figured out, is the idea of role explosion. So going back a couple slides, what started out as 5 basic roles very quickly starts to multiply as I want to build out more and more access. And not only does that become role explosion, but it also becomes very, very difficult to manage who has access to what role, which roles apply to which person. Anytime a new person comes on board, like if I was to introduce a plumber to this scenario or other family members, all of those roles have to then be added to each of those new individuals. The other challenge beyond role explosion is the fact that this often leads to different business policy violations. So if you were to think about external factors like compliance, there's the internal factors like business policies that dictate who should have access. If you're in finance and maybe you're a manager, maybe you should have access to sensitive finance data, but you shouldn't have access to sensitive employee data. On the complete flip side, beyond just the internal policies, you've got the external factors, the different compliance standards like export control, CCPA, GDPR, whatever it might be. But all of those different compliance standards are there to make sure that not only is the business protected, but the users and the people who handle the information and the people outside of the business are also protected. The last element, this one is to me kind of the real danger, because when we start to look at people having too much access to information, the wrong level of access to information, what it really does is it starts to open the door to potential data exfiltration. Somebody taking sensitive information, downloading it, grabbing it, whatever they're doing, and sharing it to an external party. This is obviously putting the business at risk. It puts the end user at risk, puts the country at risk, whatever it might be, especially when we're looking at export control. But a whole series of challenges come as a result of this role-based approach to access controls. Ariel, maybe I'll hand this one over to you, but when we look at applications like SAP as a house, what does it really mean?
Well, so if you look at it from an organization standpoint, every application would become a house. So you'd get like a little village, or depending on the number of application, it becomes a little community, right? So you need to have a register of each house, each roles, to the level of detail of who's accessing the stove or who's accessing the knives for a little community, that's a lot of information, right? So that is very difficult to implement. And another part that is interesting to see is, well, some application, they need to have some consistency. So from one house to another, you won't have the same rules. But an organization that needs to comply, they need to make sure that they have the same consistency. So it's very hard to prove compliance. And managing all of those, this little community, all those roles, and to this level of detail, that has an impact on the velocity of the delivery of your application. So that's quite difficult. So what Axiomatics does is what we call orchestrated authorization. So instead of having every little house in this community with its own rules, we have what we call a little concierge, someone that is decentralized, that has a holistic view of everything, that implements and enforces the policies in the applications, that will simplify the compliance and simplify the proof of compliance. And in a sense, you can deliver and deploy faster your application. So this little orchestrated, this little concierge will centralize the access while decentralizing the policy authoring. So this is what we call orchestrated authorization. Yes, thank you. I would just focus on right now. I will just give the mic to Akshay. Maybe you can tell us what Pathlock is about and how Pathlock fits into this story.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. So your usual SAP system will be role-based access control, and your security teams will have multiple hats to put on: system hardening, patch deployment, and creation of roles, where role explosion is very easy. So Pathlock simplifies all the processes via its suite of different products, a few of which are code scanning, where you can there is an ATC check. We have a similar product to that, where we scan the code for any vulnerabilities. Vulnerability management, where if there are any security issues that need to be checked, vulnerability management does that. Your transport control, whenever you release any transport, it does all the checks that might be needed before pushing it to the further systems. And threat detection and response, so any threat that it says at runtime, it will, any unusual activity that it monitors, it can be avoided, and there can be a policy applied at runtime too. And finally, coming to the product which we'll be discussing today, dynamic access controls. So if you want to mask any data at runtime based on any attribute that you see on screen, or you want to derive it, or maybe block certain specific attributes to be from being displayed, in that case, dynamic access controls will be used. If you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so that's just kind of illustrated over here. If you are only using SAP security role-based access, so role explosion, you would know that it's very easy. You keep on creating new roles, because for the same auth objects or elements, you might end up creating multiple roles. But with Pathlock's enforcement, where you can just need to create a single policy, and Axiomatics, where you can read user attributes and environmental variables easily, and the synergy of these two products, you can have a zero trust compliance product which runs end to end, and helps out your security team in bringing cost down a lot. Yeah. Or back to you, Matt.
Perfect. All right. So maybe I think Ariel and I are going to end up tag teaming this one, but
yeah, no problem.
We've already kind of highlighted some of the downsides, the issues with SAP on its own. And again, this isn't to call out any. SAP is, again, a great product, but SAP on its own does struggle with the authorization access to information. So by combining Axiomatics and Pathlock, as a joint solution for SAP, one of the first and most obvious things that it does is it changes it from that coarse-grained access control. Users have access to the kitchen, to enabling more of a fine-grained access control. So yes, users have access to the kitchen, but you're able to access the stove as long as you're over 13, you have adult supervision, you're doing it between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. All of these attributes, all of this data that makes up the decision are all of a sudden being able to be used to make the right decision at the right time under the right circumstances.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump in here as to probably paraphrase what you were saying, but just bringing it back to the core. So RBAC is not something that is going to disappear and go away. The thing is, for the challenges that are ahead of us, and we're seeing that every single day as the race for AI or any other security and attacks is coming in, you need to be more fine-grained. You need to be more specific. You need to be sure that whoever is accessing the data is the right person. So this is where Pathlock and Axiomatics are coming into play, and they're leveraging what you already have, and they're de-risking the activities and the business activities, and that's where we bring the value.
Perfect. So the other aspect of fine-grained access control is, and maybe I'm just going to skip to the data masking side. Just because you have access to information doesn't mean you should have unfettered access to information. So, I'm gonna move away from the house example, the kitchen, and I'm gonna, maybe talk about a customer record. So if I was to go into SAP right now and, maybe I'm the sales rep, and maybe I'm the sales rep within the Asia Pacific territory, and one of my customers needs information or needs some support. Just because I have access to that customer record doesn't mean that I should have full access to the customer record. I should be able to see, the customer's investment with us. Maybe I should be able to see who the people are, be able to see the opportunities, but maybe I shouldn't be able to see all of the support tickets or any other sensitive information that would maybe fall under the finance side of things. So data masking, what it allows us to do is hide certain elements within the SAP record in order to only show the relevant information for the right person.
Yeah, and by doing so, you're really following the zero trust approach, which is trust no one. And this is what it is about as well.
Yeah. And I think I was shying away from the word zero trust, but you're exactly right, Ariel.
So there is I would say is a zero standing privilege. So from the point is that it's not because you were authenticated and logged in and then and vetted that you should have access to everything. So it's really the approach of the zero standing privilege.
You got it.
Perfect.
All right.
So what are we doing next? Are we going to see how it works?
Almost
there.
Almost there. Let's. We're going to talk really quickly about how this works.
Exactly.
And then from there, we'll jump right into a really quick demo of seeing how it works.
And if people have questions, they can always reach out to us in the comments or on LinkedIn or even to our emails.
You got it. All right. So in our case, what you're probably used to is users who, they're trying to log in and they might either go through some form of an API gateway or they might be logging into SAP directly. The way this changes slightly is instead of going to SAP directly, we're going to end up going through a policy enforcement point, in this case, Pathlock. And what that really ends up doing is Pathlock is, I don't want to use the term man in the middle, but it's sort of the concierge, as you will. They're the ones that are saying, you know, based on this, you can go here, 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 and there. So as the user makes a request into SAP, Pathlock then takes that request that the user is making. It forwards that request over to Axiomatics, the decision service. And the Axiomatics decision service is going to take a look at the policy. And based on the policy of what the user is trying to access within SAP, the policy is going to say, okay, well, based on that type of resource, based on that scenario, we need to find out what the user attributes look like right now. And those user attributes could be anything from security clearance, department, location, citizenship, you name the attribute. All of those data points can then be sent back to the Axiomatics decision service. And as long as the policy and the attributes match up, then we're going to send back a response to Pathlock to then either permit or deny access to that information within SAP. A very common question that I get, and I'm going to try to get it before they come into the chat, is that looks like a lot is happening. Matt, you just talked for about 30 seconds. You know, how long does this actually take? It's measured in milliseconds at the end of the day. Most of our customers typically hold us to about a 10 millisecond or less response time in order to come up with that decision back to Pathlock. So all of this is happening in real time without the end user being aware of these steps. All right. And the reason why I can say that it's happening so quickly is the idea that this is also able to scale horizontally for the end user, or not so much for the end user, but scale for the amount of requests that are coming in. Whether it's the number of different SAP applications, SAP servers, the number of authorization engines, but we're able to deploy in a way that these elements end up scaling automatically for the business. So whether it's 1,000 requests per second or 100,000 requests per second, we can set up the decision points, the decision service, to scale horizontally with that increased load. All right, on to the main event, the fun stuff. What I think we'll end up doing is we're gonna quickly go through a really quick demo scenario through PowerPoint. Actually, I'll let you talk through this, and then we'll jump into how this would actually look within a true demo scenario.
Yeah, I think the first one Matt already has explained. So you can mask based on your department. So somebody from the finance team cannot see engineering related data, something material related or your sales order related, and vice versa. Anybody from the engineering team cannot see account related GL or probably your invoices and other document related data. And you can apply similar, masking or restriction controls to your regulations, so CUI, GDPR, and ITAR. So in case of GDPR, only users from that specific countries can see only data relating to that country, but not of other countries. And with your CUI and ITAR, it can be that sensitive materials are either masked or completely restricted for the user, depending upon your use case. So yeah, we can go through the use cases now, and this will be shown over there too.
Sure. So jump right into the video.
Yep.
All right. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, great. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, you can play the video. So the first is the CUI, where basically we are checking if the data is sensitive or non-sensitive data, and the sensitive data is allowed for all US person, but if it is non-sensitive data, it is permitted for all. So I'll let, and this is the policy editor on the Axiomatics side. So the policy says mass CUI data. So we'll just see that in the SAP screens now and how it will look. So we are basically going to use two users, Tesla and Einstein, where Tesla is from the US and Einstein is from Germany. And we'll just wait for the SAP screen to come up. Yeah, so as you can see, Einstein is trying to access a bomb, and you can see that certain materials, the material description is masked, so the user cannot tell which materials he is looking at, and those materials are sensitive. But when Tesla tries to access the material, since those materials are sensitive, and he's from US, a permitted country, so he is able to see the data. Now moving on to GDPR, uh, that's fine. You can play on. So similarly, if you want to mask GDPR data, so you can say permit certain countries only. So now, if when the policy is expanded, you can see if the user is from Germany, Italy, or Austria, he'll be able to see the data only related to his country. But if he's like Tesla in this case, who's from US, he'll not be able to see the data. So yeah, we can go ahead. So in this case, Einstein from Germany is trying to open a business partner, and you can see now. So there are multiple countries over here. So he's only able to see German data, but not France and US. Uh, can we go back a little bit? Yeah. So in this case, since he's from Germany, so he's able to see German data, but even though France is within the EU, but he's not able to see the second line item. But and same goes for US. So only the country that you have authorization to, the data is visible. The others are masked. And yeah, if you can go ahead, Matt. So the next will be an ITAR related policy where sensitive materials, instead of masking, we are blocking the complete access to such materials by checking country of control. So if you see the policy, you can see the material item, and we check the user's country COC, that is country of control. Only if they have access to that material, we have already classified those materials. So Tesla will try to access material 900. You will see now, sorry, yeah, 900. And you can see is able to enter the material and see certain data. Now the same material will be tried with user Einstein. He'll first try to access another material which he does not have access to, and you can see he's completely blocked from viewing that material because the country of control for 01 material was Germany. And now Einstein will try the same material, and he is able to enter the material and see the sensitive data, and vice versa, he'll try 900 material and he'll be blocked. So based on your classification of each individual material and their country of controls, as you can see, he is blocked right now. So you can classify your materials based on uh, any regulations. In this case, it was ITAR, but it can be any government regulations that you follow. You can do classification and assign a country of control or maybe specific users and restrict access. Instead of allowing access and then masking certain data, you can completely restrict access to, in this case, material, but it can be anything across your SAP system. It can be a bomb, it can be SE16, your data browser entries, or anything, any GUI transaction, and it can be a Fury app too. So the same will carry over to Fury app too, even for the masking. Yeah. Yeah, Matt, from a demo perspective, these are the three scenarios and different types of controls that we wanted to show.
Beautiful. You actually ended up answering a couple of the questions as we went through this, actually. But one of the questions that came up in the chat was, as far as the policies themselves, are there any limitations? You went through the materials, but what can you leverage within SAP to make a decision?
Within SAP, any attribute that you see on screen, unlike role-based access where you are restricted to org level elements mainly, but here in this case, even something as simple as a material number can be used as an attribute and classified. So it's not only material, as I said, any attribute that you see on any screen, any transaction or any process. It can be HR, so PII data. It can be finance related in the FICO transactions, and it goes across all transactions and all Fury apps, as I mentioned.
Oh, that's a great answer. Anything and everything, basically.
Yeah.
On a similar topic, one of the other questions that came up was, there's obviously a number of SAP applications. Which applications are supported?
So currently we are supporting ECC, from ECC 6 to S4 2023. So all your transactions and Fury apps will be supported. And going forward, we'll be adding more support to Ariba and other apps to Workday success factors. Those are in the pipeline already, in the roadmap.
Okay. The last question that I have in here, and I think it came in right after your first question, your first answer about essentially the everything and anywhere type of answer. How long would this typically take to set up within my environment?
So the product itself is via SAP transports. So it's just your usual transport management process where it's just a few minutes to install the product, and implementing one policy, a simple policy, can be done within 4 hours. And depending on the complexity, maybe 8 to 16 hours for
Amazing.
one policy.
All right. I don't see any other questions coming into the chat at this point. This has been really, really, really valuable for myself. I've already seen it, but I always like working with you guys, so always a pleasure. Any closing comments, remarks from any of the panelists? Maybe I'll ask it a different way. If there is one thing you'd want people to take away from this, Ariel, what would you say is the most important thing of today? That you're on mute.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that I'm on mute. No, the one thing that I would like people to take away is that if you have you're probably running on SAP, and adding Pathlock and Axiomatic, it doesn't mean shifting your entire system. On the contrary, is that actually it's enhancing your system. It makes you better, more secure. So, and it doesn't require. So it's a lot of things actually that I'm saying. So it's not one word, but it's like no. But bottom line is that you don't have to replace SAP. You enhance SAP. If I wanted to make it crisp.
Great answer.
Great answer.
Akshaya, same question.
Ariel stole my answer. So basically,
come on.
I'll just add a line to it. So we are, as she mentioned, your role-based access still stays the same. We are just the limitations of role-based access are being covered by Pathlock and Axiomatics, where SAP falls short, so we can add value over there and make it very dynamic and quick to easy to use and quick policies basically.
Maybe what we could do. One question is that what would be your recommendation when an organization is running on SAP? Is there a specific application you should look into, or a specific SAP application that you should look into in particular and try to secure first?
So based on our past experience, so it has always mostly been PII data where HR related information needs to be protected. You should not be able to see the salaries or address for that matter of employees and other personnel. And then going over to the business side, vendor related bank data, your tax ID, so from which you can find out who is the vendor, and such data has been the major major use cases for us. And then we get from government organizations and defense related scenarios where you need to protect certain sensitive materials, or it can be sensitive vendors too, and these are the major use cases that we see across the board.
Okay, that's cool. That's a great answer. Thank you. So
Mohit, I see you coming on and off mute. I feel like you're waiting to jump in.
They have already answered the most of it, like Ariel and Akshay said. So the Pathlock solution and Axiomatic, it sits on top of your RBAC authorizations, and you don't need to disturb them. And it provides an additional layer of security so that a zero trust confidence can be maintained. So, and the solution is quite dynamic, and there are no such scenarios that can't be covered with these solutions.
Again, very, very good answer. I'm glad I asked you guys. I wish I would have gone first, but I'll try to throw in my 2 cents that is slightly different. I would say the biggest thing as a takeaway for me is that authorization is already happening within your applications, within SAP applications. The challenge is that the way it's being done through that role-based approach currently is complicated, it's kludgy, and it's oftentimes very, very slow to maintain. With an attribute-based access control method, what it does is it changes it from constantly updating, adding, changing roles to leveraging information you already know about your users from an attribute source where it comes from, and not changing your policies. One of the best things that I ever hear from customers is that what we're able to do for them is take it from managing policies is typically measured in weeks and months of the year from different employees, down to something that is typically a set it and forget it. They don't worry anymore about policies. Which means, long-winded way of saying, you end up getting a far more accurate way of authorization for your end users with far less maintenance mode to actually give them that level of access. I'm not sure if I changed the answer much, but I
think it's a different spin, which was good as well.
Good. Well, on that note, Akshay, Mohit, Ariel, always a pleasure to work with you guys. Appreciate you taking some time to walk us through the Axiomatics with Pathlock integration to supercharge SAP.
And not your maple syrup.
Yeah, I've got SAP brain now. Yeah. It has been an absolute pleasure, and thank you everyone for taking the time to listen in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and
thank you.
Bye.
Great.
Bye.